What is up, friends?
I didn't agree to that. I didn't agree to any of this.
I wasn't talking to you.
Right.
It is Dave.
To them? No, we're not having that either.
They're not friends either.
No. It's
We're
a
all
hostile unknown force. The internet. You don't greet the internet with arms. With arms wide open.
I'm just keeping them on side for the time being, Duncan.
Right, come until they
we get in
inevitably
this
turn
list.
on us. Yeah.
And then it goes fuck. Welcome back, Dave, Duncan, Ross, scattered on the screen from Metal Epidemic. Back for our customary mid-year list podcast. That is right. It is time for the top 10 albums of 2024 so far. Had a brief discussion before the recording. Confidence is kind of where on a scale of 1 to 10 right now. Duncan, I'm feeling yours is like...
You have to be more specific. Confidence that I have a list? Yes, there is a list here.
Okay, so 10 on that, but on confidence in your list.
I mean, yeah. It
Okay.
exists. It has existed for weeks now.
Sold
It has changed many times. And even as I'm looking at right now, and looking at my master list of albums, I'm swithering about changing at least. But I'm not going to do it, because if I do that now, then I'll hate myself later on.
Okay,
See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
Committed, Dave. Committed.
Ross, on the other hand, he is the master of the genre curveball on these lists. So his confidence, I feel like his confidence is quite high right now. I feel
Pretty
like
high.
he's
I can't wait to
radiating.
piss our audience right off. That's what I'm here for. How can I alienate everyone? Let's do it.
Do not be surprised if Ross starts to gush about the latest Billie Eilish album on this list.
Billie Eilish got an album out.
Where have you been? It's 2024, man.
Yeah, man.
Billie Eilish.
Doesn't release an
the
album
second
every
biggest
year,
album of the
Dave.
year.
How dare you? Is it?
Second
What's
biggest.
right? What is the biggest album of the year?
Sabrina Carpenter, I'd say. It's probably the biggest.
I don't know who that is. Who's Sabrina Carpenter?
You know that song Espresso? You can't move 5 minutes without hearing it.
No.
Not particularly,
Literally,
not particularly
I'm-
good. Not particularly good.
And she's the highest selling artist of the year.
It's done like 3 nights at the Hydro, I think.
Oh yeah, actually, I saw something about
That's that fucking Taylor Swift, like, stayed a month in the
Oh,
UK.
yeah.
Propped up the economy for that whole month. Travelling.
Edinburgh's still recovering.
Did she not, like, Tay not got an album out this year, no? I just assume she's the biggest selling artist every year.
She might.
I think she did you know?
She might have
That
that.
must be the
Oh,
biggest.
that'd be the biggest sin.
Yeah, there we go. And then you're Sabrina, the teenage witch.
Aye. Yeah.
And then Billie Eilish.
There we go. So that's Ross's top 3 out the road. It's also
He's not
worth.
denying it, Dave. He's not denying it.
It's not. No, it's not. It's also worth saying that these lists will cover the first 6 months
Oh, God,
of
yes.
the year.
Dave,
Um,
now they don't know the trauma, right? So, like Dave went on
They do
holiday.
not know the
what,
trauma.
a week and a bit ago, right? And
Yeah.
let's put it this way: if we were going on the time of recording right now, my list is dog shit. There has easily been 3, maybe 4 albums that would be in my top 10. So what I'm saying is, don't get used to this list, because at the end of the year, it's going to be fucked.
Yeah.
Been some, like, July was a ridiculous month. August is proving to be a ridiculous month, and we put our foot down, Dave, and very happily was like that. End of June, right? That is, we cannot go further.
Yeah.
We won't. We won't.
We will indeed. So yeah, 1st of January, 30th of June. That is the limits of this list. We will
Take
not
it
be
to the
going-
limit.
We'll not be
Pass
talking
the
about all
bottle.
those bangers from July. They will be ignored.
Yep. We're not,
Until the
we're
end
not
of the
even
year.
acknowledging them, Dave.
No.
They don't exist.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay.
top 10s going from 10 down to 1. Any preference on who wants to go first on these lists, on tonight's list?
You seem keen.
You're the host.
Do I?
I feel like you should.
Yeah, I
Set the
feel like
tone.
you should chaperone us. Chaperonas. No.
Like, there's a bit of a cop out there, but okay. I will. I will
Come
start
on,
off.
confidence. Cock of the walk.
I'm fairly confident in my list.
Are you?
I think so.
Right, before we go over, like, what was the count of, and this is insane, this puts things in perspective. Do you have a count of how many 5-star albums you've handed out this year?
No,
Watch
I lost count back in May sometime.
Is it more than 6?
Oh, 100%.
Right, so you more than one a month if we're doing average.
More than 10. I had more than 10 5-stars. Yeah.
So you have more. So there are, as it stands right now, DV 5-star. No, so not Duncan. Duncan 5-star albums. Internet just thinks I just give them out, like a paedophile wooing children. You know what I mean? Like there's you know what I mean? Like I just apparently just what's that 5? What's that? Oh, there's a D in the title 5. Like
you're the Oprah of metal reviews.
Like,
you get 5. You get 5.
Everyone just like, so, but like the quality control on this show has always been you, Dave. Has been since the start, and for you to say that you have more 5-star albums at the midway mark of the year than there are places on your top 10 list, I think speaks to the general incredible content of music this year.
I'd say the first 6 months of this year, I've given out the most 5-stars I've ever given out since we started doing this. And it has been like at least 1 or 2 a month where I've just been like, fuck me, that is amazing. It's been kind of ridiculous so far. And we said this last year as well. Like last year, the quality was ridiculous, but this year's
It just seems to be getting better and better. My list contains 4 albums that are self-released.
Oh, interesting.
So, just throwing another factoid in there.
Yeah.
Like, there is 4 albums on my list that record labels did not put out, that bands and associated PR handled themselves. And that in itself, I think that speaks to the quality of this year. And every single one of those albums got fucking 5 stars. So
I have 2 on my list that are self-released. Also, good year.
I feel like I need to check my list now as well.
Yeah. So like that's how you know, like they're competing against like labels and reach and marketing and all the rest, and these albums cut through that. So
I think I've got 4 actually.
Maybe the same.
Oh, maybe the same 4.
I will be.
Taylor Swift self-released.
Yeah. At this point, why does she even need a record label? She could fucking buy them all.
Yeah, true.
See, if she wanted to buy Spotify tomorrow, this is how I'm always kind of wary of her. Is that like she's like, I want to give back to the people. Buy Spotify then and give the money back to the artists. She'll not do that. She'll not do that. Because she's selfish.
Oh no, they're gonna come for us.
Okay then. Right, shall we?
Yes. Please do.
Let's do this. Okay. Number 10s, gentlemen. Here we go. Okay. Kicking things off. Number 10. An album that I had to include in my top 10. There was no ifs, no buts. Every time I tried to make this list, I just couldn't imagine this album not being in it. And not because it's the most revolutionary album I've ever heard, but just down to the fact that it is one of the most fun and infectious albums I've had the pleasure of spinning in 2024. Not a lot of people are talking about them, but it's about time a lot more people check them out. My number 10 is the latest release from the Austin Doom-Wop trio, Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol.
I've never heard of this.
Oh,
we reviewed it, man. It is like an album full of 2-minute songs and every riff is amazing.
Their new album, Big Dumb Riffs,
I'm in.
was released on March 22nd via Permanent Teeth Records. Okay, so Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol. If you've never heard of them before, you're in for a fucking treat right now. because this is a gem of an album. If you're looking for an album that's just going to make you smile for its entirety, then Big Dumb Riffs is it. And the album lives up to its name. It is groove heavy. It's 8-string guitars. They play a kind of blend of like sludge, doom, groove. It's almost got a kind of gentiness to it, but I would never class them as gent because that would just be wrong. It's got the quirk of bands like Primus, if you remember Psycore from Mega years ago, even like early Bloodhound Gang to an extent, but it's heavy as balls at the same time. Heavily riff driven. As Duncan said, like every track has just got one of those riffs you're just like, oh fuck yes, that is awesome. And because of that, it kind of feels like every track kind of will stick with you because there's something about it that's just so memorable. Lyrically, also the same. It's kind of genius lyrically. Batshit crazy. Like lyrics are off the chain crazy, but insanely hooky at the same time. I have not stopped spinning this since we reviewed it back in March. There's something about the way these guys have constructed this album and these songs to leave you just wanting more. Every song switches it up. You know, there's like lots of changes in tempo and rhythm. They'll give you a different slant on what they've done previously on every track, and lyrically, as I said, there's always a line or a hook that you're kind of thinking about afterwards. That also kind of differentiates each of the tracks as well. I also love the fact they just do not give a fuck about song length. It's like, no, we're not going to do 3-minute, 4-minute songs. We'll throw in a track at a minute if we want. You know what I mean? They do not give a fuck, but it kind of works perfectly on this album. This is like stupid amounts of fun. The production as well. The production just suits their sound down to the ground. It's really thick, really kind of meaty sounding. Lots of character. This isn't like a cookie cutter production. And it's such an album just to easily tear through. It's just over 20 minutes long, and every track is just gold. Like, loved it. They've also just announced they've teamed up with a new booking agency, so they're planning a big European and UK tour for next year.
Oh,
so
wonderful! Yeah,
keep your eyes on that. But yeah, that is my number 10. It's so fucking good. Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol and Big Dumb Riffs. Okay. Who wants to go next and do the number 10?
You're the host.
I'll go.
There we go.
I'll go
Ross
next.
jumps in. Fuck the host.
My show now.
Fuck him.
So my number 10 was, I said before we started, quite tight. I had kind of 3 albums that were all really fighting for that spot. So I listened to all 3 of them back to back today. And one of those 3 I only heard for the first time today. And that is because I heard they brought like 5 singles, so I'd heard almost half the album, and then I listened to the rest of it today.
Classic Ross approach here.
It is, isn't
like,
it?
There was only one spot. 3 albums must fight for supremacy. One of them I only heard today.
So just missing out, which I would have loved to have started this podcast off with one of my usual pop bangers, but unfortunately, Brat by Charlie XCX has just missed out. In place of the returning Crossfaith in their new album Arc. It is, and when I say this just made the list, this only came out last week, or the last week of June, so I just made it for your cutoff. I loved Crossfaith back in the day. I thought the Zion EP really blew up, and they could never quite hit that standard again on the full length. The first 2 albums I thought had really good songs on them, but they never quite had that same buzz, and they've been away now for 6 years. It's been since the last album came out, Ex Machina. So when I seen it was coming out, I was a bit timid about it because I was like, that sort of kind of electronic core thing, if they come back and just do that, that's going to sound really dated. If they come back with all the sort of dubstep stuff, it's going to sound really dated. But then if they sound like modern metalcore bands, I'm also not really going to like that either. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. So I think one of the reasons this has probably made my list is I'm just so impressed that they've done something here that sounds modern and new, but still sounds like the Crossfaith that I loved 10 years ago, but doesn't sound like the bands that I was scared had influenced it. If that makes a lot of sense. You know, like bands like, it's very video gamey, like in the same way like what Bring Me the Horizon or Static Dress are kind of doing now. but they seem to understand that a lot more. I don't know if it's the kind of Japanese element that they have, but when you hit play on this, it sounds like you're being dropped into the Blade Runner world and people are trying to stab you. Like, it's so intense, and I feel like a lot of the metalcore bands now skimp on the lightness. Like, this is heavy when it really wants to be. Like, this really crunches. It has massive synth parts in it. The riffs are huge. It even has a song with Wargasm that doesn't make me fucking hate Wargasm. So,
which is every Wargasm collab. Like, every Wargasm collab with any
even the
artist
Queen one's
is
quite
like,
good.
yeah, like I listened to and they did one with Poppy recently as well, and I listened to it and I'm like, this is really fucking good. I should listen to Wargasm, and then I switch on the Wargasm album like that. No, please.
Fair play, man. Their booking agent hasn't slept in 4 years. Like, this band are fucking everywhere. But this is like 11 songs, 9 of them are just complete dance destruction. And then there's a kind of chill wave sort of song near the end, which I seem getting quite a lot of slack. I really enjoy it. It kind of sounds like Loathe were playing on a beach somewhere, and I'm sitting there with a wee cocktail watching them. I really enjoy it. And the last song's this kind of metalcore ballad, but not like your sort of tried and tested pianos. It's just really uplifting, and it has a huge chorus that you could see a main stage at a festival, everyone singing it after 10 songs of jumping up and down. So Arc by Crossfaith is my number 10. Welcome back, boys.
Nice. Nice one. Duncan, what you got at number 10?
I'm desperate to see Loathe play on a beach while I'm chilling.
Here, could you imagine?
Oh man, it would only be better if they were all wearing like cardigans and shit. Like, just inappropriate dress, like the same outfit that Nirvana used in their Unplugged session. It's just like, it's not that cold in this room. Everyone else is fine. Okay. Speaking of things that come from hot places, but I mean are dressing like it's cold. There's a segue that shouldn't have worked, but I pulled out my ass. Yeah, like the 10 spot has been probably the most difficult for me. I think on any year we've ever done a mid-year list, and as a result, there are some truly outstanding albums that didn't make the cut. But my 10 spot is usually reserved for an album that has been spun to death, and I'm still going back to it because I just find pure joy in the listening experience. And it doesn't get much more pure spinny than this album here. I mean, the end of last year, we had heard a single, and we were like, oh, she's playing it in a scene. She's playing it in a scene. I wonder how the album was in. And then the album came in. I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I don't want anything else. The band is Gallo. The album is Twin Frames. It's out from Sumerian Records. And it's, imagine if the Human League were vampires and slept with the Smiths. It's kind of somewhere in between all that, and it just totally works. It is like Dave's Rigshaw, Billy's Burger Patrol, a very short album. It's under half an hour. It's 11 songs. One of those is kind of like a intro track. One of them is an outro track. But like they're not actual songs. And everything in between is straight to the point. They have a very distinct sound. The instrumentation used doesn't really change from track to track. The BPM doesn't really change from track to track, but it is hooky as fuck. Like, you will sing, you hear this album once, you know every chorus, every single song, every chorus, and then you'll go back to it and back to it and back to it and back to it, and it just sounds great. And then you look at them and they all look just miserable, and it makes me love them even more, like the Smiths. So yeah, I'm curious about this one because they're on Sumerian, and Sumerian has a weird fucking lineup of bands at the moment, and a lot of them are doing that kind of crossover into the kind of the more mainstream realm while retaining the kind of alt like look and feel. So I'll be curious to see how long it is before they're over here. I can't imagine they won't get them out there. I'm also very surprised that this album has had as little traction as it has this year. Like, to me, I listen to this and I'm like, it's so marketable. Like, you could have like a band like Creeper do a US tour and have Gallo opening for them. No fucking problem at all. You'd also have Poppy doing a tour and have Gallo out. no fucking problem at all. They have a versatile enough sound that I think they could play with something infinitely heavier, but infinitely kind of more kind of poppy rocky sort of stuff. They've just got that marketability. It's a great album. I genuinely think it's awesome. It has scalped a few albums that I know for a fact should be on my list, but over 20 listens this year for this one. It is sitting second behind my most listened to album, which, by the way, will feature later on. Currently sitting at 68 listens, 68 full complete listens of my top small album. If you know, you know. So yeah, my number 10 is Gallo Twin Flames by Sumerian Records.
Nice. So that's number 10 out of the way.
Shall
okay.
we do it?
Moving on. Number 9, gentlemen. My number 9 is from a band that have a lot of history with Metal Epidemic, actually.
Oh.
They were
What
one
did
of
they
the,
say about us? Let's sort that right now.
They were one of the first ever bands to be reviewed on our podcast. I think it was maybe the first or second album review we ever did. We loved that album, but they come back 4 years later and just leveled up in every single way. My number 9 is from the Dutch rock band Duel and their new album, The Shape of Fluidity, which was released on April 19th via Prophecy Productions. I thoroughly love this release. What kind of blows my mind about this band is this is only their third album. They're 3 albums in,
insane.
and the quality of the songwriting they've managed to achieve on every album leading up to this is just incredible. But this album sounds like a band that have clearly spent so much time just like really honing in their craft, forming these tracks to the kind of next level of their sound. The construction of this album from the ground up just feels bigger, more accomplished, it's more layered, more detailed, and musically the band just sound immaculate on this one. And they know it, like they open the album with a 7-minute track, you know what I mean, like it's fuck all, like just, yeah, here you go, 7-minute track, and it's so fucking infectious. The growth from this band is just ridiculous. From album to album is kind of mind-blowing. And for me, this is their best work to date. They aren't holding back on this one. They've put together a collection of songs that are all kind of thematically connected, but each giving you something different from the band at the same time. And it's an album that just makes you want to hit that repeat button as soon as it ends. It's probably a little riffier in places than what they've done previously, which I kind of love. We've got some of the heaviest riffs they've ever written on this dual release, but they've also given us some of the biggest hooks that they've ever written at the same time. And if you're looking for like a flawless vocal performance, then look no further, because like vocally this is just majestic. Raven has always had a voice that kind of pulled you in when you're listening to it, but on this, just commanding from start to finish. Not a skippable track on this album for me. For me, this feels like Duel just in their prime right now, and I can't wait to see them play over here later this year. They're going to be over here later with Hangman's Chair. I think this material is going to slay, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh, what? Did you see what he did there?
See that?
Did you see what he did there? Anyone see it? No one saw
Yeah,
it.
they're playing
No
at
one
Slay
saw it
in
there.
Glasgow later this year. So that is my number 9. It is Duel and the Shape of Fluidity.
Nice.
Ross, what you got at number 9?
My number 9 is just a good time. It's There
love a
Goes
good
There Goes the Neighborhood by Kid Capiche. Kind of pop punky, maybe a bit of indie in there sort of band. Very 2000 Trees band if you're over here and go to the festivals. I heard their last album, which only came out last year. Here's What You Could Have Won. So they're back very soon, like maybe 8 months between the 2 albums, something like that. But it's not like just B-sides, it's a full new album. They've signed to Spine Farm Records as well, which has been put out on, which is good to see. This is not a lot of strings to the bow. It's pretty much straight up punk songs for half an hour. Very, very politically charged. Like Can You Hear Me, spelled EU, Hear Me, and songs about police brutality, and there's even a song about Oliver Twist on there for good measure, because why not? But
Lisa.
like it's kind of what you were just saying about your rule. Like when I don't know what to put on, this seems to be the album that I'm reaching for because it's over really quickly. I know what I'm getting. I'm getting fast-paced songs that kind of like we were saying with Gallo there. I heard this once and I could sing almost every song on the album individually. It's so catchy. It's so to the point. I like the message that they've got as well, which always helps. I've not seen them live yet, but I've heard the live show is absolutely incredible. They've really went up in energy from the last album. Like the kind of highlights in the last album were a lot of the kind of more mid-tempo, slower stuff. They've just dinged that and really just focused on the energy, which I'm all for. I need to see these guys live, but this is maybe the catchiest album on my list. There's maybe one other one that when it gets to it, I'll shout it out at the time, but there's even a song called Zombie Nation on this, boys. Like, this is just how on the nose this album is. It's so much fun. I think you two will both really like it as well. So if you want some big choruses, if it's as sunny tomorrow as it is today, I'd recommend Kid Capiche because it's just a great time.
I have downloaded the album, and this is marked as the first one of Rossi's secret recommends. Last year it was Origami Angel, and I'm still playing that album to death.
Pretty sure they've got a new single out today.
I'm just going to say that, yeah.
Well, they had their earlier one this year was fucking killer as well. So
yeah.
We just need that Origami Angel 4 Years Strong.
Oh, tour. That's what we need.
4 Years Strong coming across next year. And if they just get Origami Angel in the bottom there, we'll just be bouncing about the place and happy as people that shouldn't be bouncing about the place at our age.
Awesome. Duncan, number 9.
Well, Dave, wouldn't you know it? The first of our twinsies. The Shape of Fluidity by Dole, number 9 for me. Nice. Prophecy Productions. Fucking killer album. You cast your mind back to that album review of a couple of years ago, and we were finding our feet.
4 years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, Dave. Time is a flat circle. And we were finding our feet, Dave, and we'd taken a couple of years off reviewing, and we came back, and I think the two of us were like that. Let's not shoot our load quickly in the review process here. Let's reserve a bit of this is fucking incredible. Let's try and be overtly critical. But I've went back to that album many, many, many times, and every time I do, I find wonder in its construction and get lost in the melody. And I thought that was like one of those albums that was always going to stand out as a band that more people should talk about, but they don't. And one that was kind of just secretly mine. And then The Shape of Fluidity came out, and it is almost like the band have trained like in a fucking MMA gym and just made like marked improvements in every facet of their performance. The songwriting is absolutely incredible, and it's easy to get in a position of being beguiled by how huge it sounds. And then at the same time, the vocal performance, which was exceptional on the previous release, is almost made obsolete by the performance on this new album. His vocal range is greater, which I didn't think would be possible. His choice of melody is much more interesting, more intricate, and there's more attention to the details and the nuance, specifically in the lyrical content, how it's delivered vocally. And then the production is just like night and day in comparison. It sounds fucking huge. And I think, to me personally, this is the album that I've kind of first felt like, all right, Dole's like ready to come out and the world are going to accept him. I think this is, it's still an album that doesn't appear to be getting a huge amount of traction, which does upset me. But I think if you, of all my list, actually, there are maybe 2 or 3 albums where I'm like, I would like happily throw this out as a recommendation to almost anyone with a passing interest in music. And this is the great example of that. I think you don't have to be into the heavier side of things to enjoy Dull. I think if you aren't at the heavier side of things and you fancy something which isn't going to be like rip-roaring blast beats and like beatdowns, I think there's a space in your heart for Dull as well. So yeah, it's an incredible album, and very much like yourself, I'm looking forward to catching them when they finally come across to Scotland. And the Slay at Slay. That's see how I did that there? Just stole that from Dave. So yeah, number 9 for me is Duel, The Shape of Fluidity on Prophecy Productions.
Awesome. Okay, number 8. So number 8, weirdly, when we did this last year, our mid-year lists, I had one kind of out-and-out death metal album on my mid-year list, just the one.
There was one was enough, Dave.
And pretty much the same has happened this year, to be honest.
In fairness, last year though, you did one, and then I think was it not like the following 3 months? Was it not like September just had every death metal band released an album?
It did.
So you held off. You held off, like, because you're like that. It's going to get heavy.
Yeah.
Put one in here, a courtesy death metal album, and then things will pick up.
Yeah. There's a couple on my list this year that are kind of like fringing on death metal, but I only have one kind of death metal album, and it's my number 8. My number 8 comes from the New Jersey death metal quintet Cognitive.
It's so heavy.
Their new album Abhorrence was released on May 17th via Metal Blade Records. We've been saying this for a while now, but these guys have been, I mean, like I said it in the last album review of theirs, I was like, these guys are at the top of their game right now. And then they came back with this, and I was like, these guys, they're at the top of their game right now. They've right, like, for this year they've been out touring with like every big name in death metal, just from tour to tour. It's just like every fucking tour they go into, it's stacked bills. But this new album is just the next level for Cognitive. The songwriting goes from strength to strength on each release, and we loved their last album, 11 Thoughts of a Hastened Extinction, but somehow they've managed to outdo it on Abhorrence. This is everything they've done in the past, but so much more. Like, this is the refinement they've made on this album is just incredible. Like, the balance they've found of technicality against just that pure kind of brutal kind of groove, with little kind of flickers of melody, and their kind of instinct on when to deliver that big kind of payoff during their track. It's just on the money, and the kind of sheer class and the riffs on this album is just on another level. For me though, one of my favourite things about this release was the lead work. It's some of the best lead work that I've heard on a death metal album in the last year. For the first time in a long time, I got goosebumps just from the lead work alone on this album. So good. Vocally as well, I think is where they've possibly improved the most of everything on this album. I think vocally this is Shane's finest moment. He has elevated his technique massively. Like, these additional layers that he's added, the different tones, it just gives the vocal element of this album a huge boost. If tracks
the tonal stuff is just absolutely insanely good.
Yeah. Tracks like A Pact Unholy or Savor the Suffering, some of the most like disgusting vocals that I've heard from a death metal album, but I think adding in those kind of cleaner kind of tonal moments not only makes this much more varied vocally, but also makes the kind of that guttural stuff sound even more deadly on this album. So addictive. Like, it's an album that I can just easily stick on anytime. Like, I don't have to be in a particular mood, I can just throw it on and enjoy it straight away. Again, another album that I feel has no weak tracks. There's not a track on here I'm like, nah, maybe skip that. Never happens. It's everything that I'd want in a death metal album and a little bit more. So my number 8 is Cognitive and Abhorrence, which was released on Metal Blade Records. Ross, number 8.
My number 8 is an album that was recommended to me by the two of you, actually. Yeah.
It's our fault, Dave.
Someone listens to our reviews.
Yeah. You recommended me this album, but never told me how to say the band name, so I'm winging it. When I say it here.
Oh, nice.
My number 8 is Year 2 by Zencastr.
Yes. That's not far off. It's better than how I pronounce them.
This album is fucking dynamite, boys. This is so good. When you sent me it and it had this lovely pastel, really bright pink album cover, I was like, this is going to be a bit of me. This is going to be a bit of really nice and breezy. This sounds like it's came from the fucking depths of fucking hell, man. This album is like clings to your skin. It's so claustrophobic. I fucking love this. Like, it's just the relenting heaviness of it. Like, I don't even really know what genre I would call it. There's like big slabs of nu metal on it. There's big sludge riffs just thrown in throughout it as well. The vocal delivery is broken.
I've termed a genre for this now, and there's a few bands doing it. I'm calling it omni metal. I think it is like is metal that encompasses everything, so it's omni metal.
That generally works because it just I don't even really know how to describe it. It's a gut feeling, like it hits you like on a kind of like 1-to-1 sort of level. Like I feel like when he sing, like when the kind of clean vocals come in, they're so fractured and broken. It sounds like he's singing to you and you alone, and no one else can hear it. It has that kind of like whispering in your ear sort of feeling to it. Every time I go back to it, I walk away with a new favourite song, which is such a compliment to the album. Like I very rarely just put a song on from it. I feel like if I listen to it, I need to listen to it from start to finish. It feels like such a great body of work. I feel like maybe it's going to come up again later, so I'll keep this quite short. But this album is genuinely just incredible. So thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Never heard this band. I think you just made that up.
Thank you to Paul for the review. Great, mate.
Duncan, what you got? Number 8.
Yeah, talking about things that are just very hard to pigeonhole. I'm not going to do my usual joke where I'm smiling already. I don't know, pigeonhole is just a funny word. I just imagine like a pigeon getting fingered. I don't know why I like a pigeonhole. Anyway, I literally don't know why. The pigeon porn coming your way 2025. There are certain albums in a serious tone. Let's go serious. There are certain albums that when you listen to, they just connect with you on a almost kind of primitive instinctual level. It's hard to articulate what it is about the album that you necessarily love without spending a lot of time contemplating who you are as a person, how you ended up where you are, and what the meaning of life is. And this is one of those albums where, like, Dave sends you something, it's from an artist you've never heard of before, you sit down and you spin it, and within the runtime of the album, you kind of lose yourself, you lose concept of time, and you get to the end of it just feeling almost like in a transformative state. The band are Big Brave. The album is A Chaos of Flowers. The album is via Thrill Jockey, and it is one such album. It weirdly harnesses elements of industrial, folk, kind of almost pagan style music. There's a bit of sludge in there. There's some weird noise rock, and it kind of combines them in a way where the album never feels predictable, yet the pacing of the album allows itself to unfold in a way which feels really natural. Like, whilst I could never predict, it's like even going back to it after a month since the previous time and listening to it and forgetting certain sections, you're never shocked by what you hear. It's a natural progression, but when it lands, you are surprised by it because it just so naturally fits. It's a combination of different textures, tones, and styles. And their hidden weapon, like a lot of the bands on my list, come in form of the vocals. The female vocals on this one are driven in such a manner that they deliver huge power and massive amounts of vulnerability. It's a super rewarding listen. It's also produced within like an inch of its life in terms of its cleanness. Like the amount of instrumentation, particularly on the percussive side, is insane, and you can pick out every single detail. It's just like the time, effort, and love that the album was given is genuinely phenomenal. I listened to the previous album as well, off the back of our review, because Dave does his due diligence, listens to the stuff that came out before, and they had an album that came out literally the year before, and it is really fucking good as well. I'd like just to the point where you expect a long period of time in between authoristic albums, and I don't get that here. I just think this band have it in their DNA to just be confidently different and brave. So yeah, to me, there would no be top 10 list at all, which would make sense for me this year if I didn't have it in and not sitting at the the 10 spot. Big Brave, A Case of Flowers via Thrill Jockey it's an experience, man. It really, really is. That's my number 8.
Awesome. Okay, number 7, gents. For my next entry.
For my next trick, a rabbit.
A fucked pigeon.
For my number 7, I have gone with the 8th solo album from Norwegian multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, and composer Ishan.
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy? His self-titled album was released via Candlelight Records on February 16th. It was his first solo album in 6 years. To be honest, to be fair, I can see why it's taken 6 years. This is
only 6 years.
This is a monster, an absolute monster. It's like stepping into a fucking movie. This album.
Yeah.
For me, it's weird though. When I heard like the first single from this, I was like, all right, this sounds interesting. Wasn't quite sure what to make of it. And then when I heard the full album from start to finish, everything just made sense. And I would say for me, this is a whole album listen. This is not like
100%.
Absolutely is.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue maybe certain tracks possibly work standalone, but I don't think it really makes sense until you hear it all connected and what kind of surrounds each of these tracks. It's got a real kind of movie score kind of feel to it, so it all does kind of flow very seamlessly together, but still very extreme. Certain tracks here, he's dipping back into his roots. There's plenty of blasts and blackened riffs and very kind of death-like screams from the man himself, and it was great to hear him get back to that, like what he was known for in Emperor. He obviously has touched quite a bit on the more kind of proggy side of things with his solo work, and a lot of this album still has those kind of like proggy flourishes to it, but tracks like Pilgrimage to Oblivion, those kind of tracks pull back on the kind of proggy stuff and just get really fucking dark and ominous, and it's fantastic to hear. It's so intense, like musically and vocally, and with that like kind of symphonic weight behind it, it just sounds even more colossal. Like, this guy has arranged full fucking symphonic orchestras behind the music on this. It's like incredible to listen to. It kind of takes the heavy parts to another level though, when you hear it with all that sort of stuff. That's not the only thing about this album though. He made 2 albums here, basically.
6 years, Dave.
6 years. And I'm not saying this is not like a double album. This is 2 melodically interlinked versions of the same album. So you've got one proggy extreme metal album, and then one which is fully symphonic and orchestral. Both the albums are kind of like cinematically influenced though. And I was surprised how much I enjoyed the symphonic and orchestral version of the album. I felt like it was just as good as the heavy version.
Dave's the sort of guy that if you took to the opera, he'd sit fucking miserable the whole way through. Play a fast one.
I'd sit on my phone, basically, the whole way through.
Listening to this.
The symphonic version is completely stripped of all the extreme stuff. But what was cool about it was it wasn't just a replica of the symphonic orchestra that's on the heavy version of the album. He hasn't
the
just
lazy version, which a lot of people do. Copied
and pasted it basically for the second album. He's actually altered the instrumentation, the dynamics, the emotional range to give you a completely different experience of it. But because the orchestral version actually follows a separate storyline that's blended into the kind of main version of the metal version of the album, it does sound like 2 different albums when you listen to them separately. It's kind of incredible what he's done here with this release. Massively ambitious. Like, this must have taken it took 6 years, but it must have aged him at least double that to make this album. But he's pulled it off, and he's made it sound like like he should be fucking scoring movies. Like it's that good.
Yeah,
Like the
man.
quality of it is ridiculous. So if you like Emperor, or you've heard any of Ishan's solo work, then definitely give this a listen. It's self-titled, came out on Candlelight Records, which is a fucking fantastic label, on February 16th. That's my number 7. Ishan's self-titled new album.
Nice.
Ross, what you got at number 7?
Ishan is huge and experimental and has taken his sound to all these sort of new places. My number 7 is, see that shit that you really liked like 10 years ago? We're going to just do that. But now it is Duat by Shokran. They are sort of an Egyptian-themed gent band. Very Sumerian recordsy back in the day.
Yeah.
This is a concept album, so every song is labelled after a different Egyptian god. And it's just so much fun. Like, there's not anything on here that I haven't heard before, but that just speaks to the quality of these songs. It's that very techy, your noise gate is turned right up, very ones and zeros, but then when it needs to soar, this guy's got such a strong vocal. Like, the way he kind of dives between the screams and the clean singing has always been impressive, but he's really taken it up a level here. Like, the choruses in this just soar. And when you're singing about being an eagle flying over Egypt, that chorus better fucking fly. And that's exactly what he does here. This is one of the self-released ones that I was talking about earlier on in the show as well. But honestly, like, if you're into this sort of tech scene that I still see people bang on about now, I've not seen anywhere near enough buzz for this album. I've not seen them on any like festival lineups or anything like that. But it is so unbelievably hard when it wants to be. Like the production on this, I think, I'm pretty sure it's self-produced as well as self-released, is so thick. It is like everything is maxed out, but it just sounds incredible. And it has these really intricate sort of Middle Eastern sort of style strings, kind of like dancing and kind of peppering everything as you go through it as well. This is such a fun time. It's a wee bit on the longer side, but if you have an afternoon and you want some good old tech metal, Shokran are absolutely... They've been killing it their entire career. This is their 4th album, but this is the best thing they've done in my opinion. So yeah, definitely check this out if you're into that sort of techie stuff. Shokran and Do It.
Awesome. Duncan, number 7.
So the first of my self-released albums. I mean, in an ideal world, this would be higher. Let's just put it that way. However, the quality of music is ridiculous this year. And what I found is there are certain albums... I'm a guy who likes a hook. I don't mean like something that you hang people on. Right? I mean, like, I like a hook. I like my music to have something that I can hang on to and it pulls me through, right? I love that. And bands that are exceptionally good at that are bands that get a lot of props from me. Unless your name is Nickelback. They can get to fuck. But I like a hook. There are certain bands that buck that exception, and there is a part of me that just likes to feel filthy. You know, kind of feel like everything's not right and it probably shouldn't be. Mankind is a blight and probably should be wiped off the planet. You know, there's like a whole laundry list of things that just make me feel like, ugh. You know? And there are other bands that find a darker place than that. And this is easily the heaviest thing on my list this year. And that it's a different level of like dark. Well, there is no light here. Unless you see them live. If you see them live, there is a tiny light. A tiny, tiny dim light. And it's surrounded by people hanging over it because there's not enough space for them on the stage. The first self-titled album of 4 that are on my top 10 list is a kind of New Orleans-y sort of oldie, heeled, styled funeral home, but if done in the style of like savage, scathing, brutal black metal. Little smidges of light here and there. And when I say smidges of light here and there, that light is a dark light. The band is Null. The album is As Spoken, and it was released by their own record label. Now, I fucking love these guys, and having now seen them live, I can tell you right now, they are incredible live. But I got even a more renewed respect for them because we got a chance to sit down with the singer and interview him, and he's easily one of the most articulate, intelligent, thought-provoking artists I've ever been in the presence of. The closest I could get to it was when we sat with Nergal, and like the energy was all weird. You're like, nothing's right here, and he's talking about mixing his paint and his blood in paint to like paint the album cover, and you're like, like just like in that time he was arrested for being a terrorist in Russia, and you're like, and you're trying to relate. Yeah, I know what that means. I got a parking ticket last week. You know what I mean? It's that sort of level. Null just exist, I think, in a weird bubble, in that they pretty much do everything themselves. So this is a self-contained unit. They're a band that we found out through our interview are really a high school band. They're a high school band that's just continued on past high school, which that in itself blew my mind. And then the more we got to understand the writing process, the more I actually appreciate how clever their album is. I always loved the music. It's this very dank, disturbing quality that sits over somewhere between sludge and blackened metal. And it shouldn't nearly be as captivating as it is, but it is. They also have, like a lot of the bands I've already mentioned, have a secret weapon, and that secret weapon lands in the vocals, which are almost tritone in style, but delivered by one person. That one person has the ability to physically contort his body on stage to deliver tones that don't make sense, and he does them live, so he ain't fucking around. But in this album, I've found that we'd listened to the previous album, we really enjoyed that, but As Spoken to Me felt like a band like fully in control of everything they were doing, with a singular purpose, a singular vision, and delivering something that is almost hard to pass by. It's an album I've listened to a lot more than a lot of other Extreme albums this year, because I find myself just needing those moments where I just want to really concentrate on something unpleasant. You know, like people say, I just want to break something like that. Like Null to me is the point where I don't really want to concentrate on something that I know is not going to make me feel happy at the end of it. They're genuinely, they're one of those bands where we mentioned it. I haven't seen them. There are bands that I can predict the glass ceiling. I can see how far the genre is going to take them. I can hear how good they're ever going to be.
Yeah.
And Null are a band that I genuinely can't see that at all. I think there's like a million different avenues you could go down. All of them would be super interesting. There would never be stops that they would have to make for too long. It's a phenomenal album. If you get a chance, throw money at them, get yourself a t-shirt. Because it is everything they do is them. They do all the artwork, they do all the pressings, everything is the band. So this is not one of these ones where you're buying the album and there's a cut going to a PR company and a cut going to a record label and someone else. Like, all this money goes back to the band. And the fact that we got to see them in Glasgow is just mind-blowing. And I can't wait to see them again. If you get a chance to, even if you don't like extreme music, check them out and be prepared to shit your pants. So number 7 for me, the phenomenal As Spoken by Null, released on their own record label. It's different level, man. Really, really, really fucking good.
Excellent. Okay, so number 6, gentlemen.
We're almost at the halfway mark, Dave. Does that mean we can take a break and this will be a separate video and tease them? Because they're going to be like that. Oh, what's coming at number 5? We're like, you have to wait a week.
Correct.
I would do it.
Correct. Number 6. I've gone for an album that has been released by probably the most consistent record label of 2024. And that is none other than Church Road Records. In my opinion, they have not dropped the ball once this year. Not at all. And it's really exciting to see what they are doing as a label and also what's going to come next from them as a label, because the level of quality that they keep adding to their roster is kind of unreal. I could have gone with a number of different Church Road Records albums for this list, but there was one in particular from the first half of the year that just blew me away. So much so that I bought that shit on hard plastic. It was the third album from UK shoegaze band Outlander. their new album Acts of Harm.
Outlander! Sorry, we have to do it Children of the Corn style, or it doesn't count.
Was released on the 28th of June, so just within the first 6 months via Church Road Records. This album, what can I say? This is just, for me, this is like audio bliss. This is just an album you can sink into and just disappear from reality. It's shoegaze, but it's done with the addition of elements of doom gaze, post-rock, alternative, bits of indie in there as well, and packaged in a production that just feels like a nice warm blanket being wrapped around you. It's an album that feels, and this was just like after we reviewed it, I've gone back to it quite a lot, and the more and more I listen to it, the more I kind of feel like it's quite a personal album to listen to. It's very tranquil and it's very delicate, almost kind of scenic at moments, but it also leads you into these kind of doomier passages as well that kind of fall on you like just kind of massive waves. The guitars are just, I love the kind of level of distortion they've caught on the guitars. It's quite hazy and very textured sounding. The drums are kind of more punchy than I would expect for a kind of shoegazy album. They've got that kind of real kind of like kind of reverby, echoey kind of levels to them, and at the snare it just kind of rings out. And the vocals just sit perfectly to give you that kind of additional layer of that very kind of ethereal melody that's never imposing on this album, but it gives you enough, just as a hook for it to kind of stick with you. It's very kind of doom gaze, shoegaze kind of pace. It's deliberately slow. It's very intimate, quite cinematic. But I think that allows Outlander to deliver something that's very emotional and deeply engaging. I love this album. I mean, we went into like mega detail with this one on our review. So like if you're looking for
just a bit,
yeah, if you're looking for in-depth analysis, then check out the review. It was quite a long one, but if kind of doomy shoegaze is your thing, then for me this year it doesn't get better than this. The production is just fucking incredible, and the vinyl is otherworldly. Just sounds phenomenal.
If you were wanting to buy that vinyl, Dave, where would you buy it from?
Well, Church Road Records are the label, but you can get it on their Bandcamp. It was ridiculously cheap. It was about £22 for the vinyl, and it was like kind of blue, kind of marble. It was lovely vinyl. Stunning stuff. Check it out.
You become, honestly.
I know. Actually, I should have had my vinyl. I could have showed it off right now. Part 2. Get it part 2. Yeah, that is my number 6 is Outlander and Acts of Harm, which came out on Church Road Records. Ross, number 6.
My number 6 is, if I was a gambling man, I would say this is the album that will sweep more mainstream metal publications than us. That was to guess. Okay. I think if I'm looking at your I'm talking about your Kerrangs and your Metal Hammers. I feel like this is the album that they're gonna really back.
Sleep Token have an album out this year, right?
Close enough. Is You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To by Not Loose.
Yeah.
This album is, I kind of went into it a wee bit fed up of Not Loose, and a wee bit.
All right.
I've liked everything they've done. I think the last EP they done, A Tear in the Fabric of Life, is the best thing they'd ever done. But the way that their fans kind of react to them, everything has to be the best thing that's ever happened. And these are people that have never heard.
They're also relatively violent. I'm going to be honest.
They're very violent.
We saw them live, and a guy just ran into me and just like full on punched my ribcage. And it wasn't like a windmill accident. It was like a full like stompy stomp. Punch a guy in front. It was assault. That's the way I would describe it right now. It was one of those things that when I was trying to think of the words to describe the feeling of being punched, the closest I could get was arf arf. It was like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like a Street Fighter punch as well. It wasn't a nice punch. And,
like when you seen the singer from Mole send me into the Shadow Realm. Is that what we're? Is this the sort of situation we're talking about?
the fans are into it in a way that even like I mean, my favourite band is Nine Inch Nails. I don't think I've ever been so into Nine Inch Nails, right?
Yeah.
Even though I think their musical, like the musicality is a different. I don't think I've ever been so into a band that I would assault someone.
Yeah.
Or boo like, oh, they've done a collab with Poppy, which by the way is
Which is on this
fucking the
album
tits,
and
man.
it's fucking amazing.
It's the tits. But
Yeah.
like you saw that initial reaction was just like people they announced it and it was just like the swarms of hate.
Yeah.
Until it came out and then the swarms of we didn't say that.
Yeah.
Like,
like even in that song, like the kind of reggaeton beatdown that has in the middle,
yeah.
sensational. But like,
Cheeky.
like when you put this album on and it opens with First, my thinking was people, those sort of fans who don't actually listen to a lot of music like this is probably the heaviest thing they've ever heard, and it is really heavy, and that is credit I'll give Not Loose, especially on this album. Like I know people who off the back of this have now went to like Outbreak Festival and maybe kind of North Untrue Festival, like these sort of. Glasgow has a really big hardcore scene right now, and I feel like a lot more eyes are on that because people heard Not Loose first and have now turned to what is 10 miles from my house that I can go see tomorrow. So I do credit them a lot for that. I know a lot of people who have got into hardcore off the back of this album.
They're fucking huge. There's so many
huge.
bands that would go the other way. You know what I mean? Like just they'd add an element
That's exactly
that
it.
slightly more commercial or something that would make like just shave it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure their label is going that. If you just do it this way, and the band have not leaned into that, which is much credit to them.
Yeah, I can see the label being like, have you ever heard of a clean chorus, Brian? But they're like, yeah, what if our first single had a fucking pig squeal in it? Because why the fuck not? Like, there's another DJ that I work with who hates like his voice. He can't do it. But I played Blind in Faith in my work, and he turned to me halfway through and said, who's this other vocalist, man? This is insane. I was like, that's the guitarist who just doesn't sing that much. What the fuck? Like, they've had like this secret weapon. They've only ever kind of
Doesn't like
very
it because it's
used.
purposely high pitched.
Yeah,
or,
he
like,
can't
is
do.
that is it?
He said
Right.
he described it as it has that Billy Talent feel that he also doesn't like. He's like, it's just a bit too squeaky for him because I told him to listen to the album. He was like, oh no, and I was like, mate, it's 26 minutes long.
Yeah,
it's
it's
over.
It's not long. It's not a long album.
Yeah, it's
That blink
in and
and you
out.
miss
It's
it.
in and out in a flash, but like you'll blink and some cunt will punch your ribs. Like that's
In and out like
exactly.
a flash is the way that Dave is describing his sex holiday. I'm out like a flash. Stamp on the passport. There you go. Hello.
I've seen like so much criticism of Slaughterhouse 2 on this album as well, which I love the first Slaughterhouse. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I think people were very, again, the Poppy thing, I guess, people were just overreacting because it's not true hardcore and this guy's clean singing. But I think this album's great, and like I say, I think other publications might give this the top spot, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this sweep a lot of awards this year. But I'd probably say it's justified. I think this album's really good.
We may have sat with someone who's responsible for the entire A&R of two massive record labels merely 2 months ago in a prolonged conversation that I'm sure about 5 minutes into he felt like he was being held hostage. And in that I made the statement and he kind of quasi-agreed with me and I stand by it. At the end of this year it'll be the biggest selling heavy album released of 2024. It's
would
fucking
not be
huge.
surprised.
It's everywhere.
Well, it's
And
this time last
it's
year,
not-
it's like Sleep Talking outstreamed Metallica. Last year.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, like the thing is, it's not on my list, and it's not because I dislike the album. I think it's a really, really good album.
Yeah.
It's not my particular brand of Java, but having seen them live, they are up there as one of the heaviest bands I've ever seen live.
Yeah.
And just the measure and control and precision, and the way that the fans are in the palm of their hand for anything they do, like all the pauses and like everything. They could do anything. They could punch a baby on stage and people would applaud.
Yeah. Seen them. The only time I seen them live was on the main stage at Bloodstock, and it was me surrounded by a lot of people waiting to see Triptychon. And even then, they had that crowd where chanting back the choruses to songs when they told them to. So that's the only time I've seen them. But yeah, the live show is fucking insane.
It's insane, yeah.
Nice. Duncan, where are you going for your number 6 pick?
Twinsies. Yeah, Church Road.
Oh.
Church Road just delivering the fucking goods. Now, I remember listening to the Outlander EP. I didn't forget when we recorded that review.
No.
That never happened. It wasn't an event. You scrub it from your mind. I think because we are so album focused, I'm going to use this excuse again because it sounded amazing last time.
Yeah.
Because we are so album focused,
Yeah.
I tend to forget when we review EPs. Because we don't have a top 10 EPs list.
No.
We don't have a top 20 EPs list at the end of the year. We seldom mention EPs out with the fact that it annoys you that they're not full length albums,
Yep.
and as a result, we seldom do them.
Yep.
Right? But in a world where we did do them, and I could remember details of them, Outlander were very much on my radar. Acts of Harm is exceptionally good. Like not having the vinyl purist to sit and listen to with like good speakers and all that. Just having an iPhone, other phones are available, and a set of fucking good headphones, also made by Apple, other distributors are available. And this album, it kind of proved to me that there are certain bands that just, the shoegaze thing is so, like, it's not overdone. I love it and I want more, but it is so there in everything now. It's like kind of feels that blackened element that we got. Like if you jump back 5 years, every band was adding a little blackened element, a little bit seasoning of the black in there. That's now, and it's hard not like the uneducated will be like that. Oh, that's a Deftones riff, and that's like that. It's shoegaze at its core. What Outlander do is use it like an artist would use another sort of brush or implement to paint a picture. It's never the crux of anything they do, but it's so central to their sound without being the thing that you lean on. Like, I am so happy to listen to it and hear vocals that don't sit within a shoegaze domain or guitar licks that don't sit within that. But the core at the bottom is always that. And it's how they build and construct their songs over it that kind of make me think they're one step ahead of the curve. Other bands that get lumbered with that spend their time trying to work at how to change that sound and take the fans with them. A great example of that is a band like Deaf Heaven, who have consistently leaned more and more into shoegaze to the point that their last album like contained very little of the DNA that existed on their first album, but their fans for the majority of it have went through them, but they made those incremental changes and eventually leaned into it. Outlander just seemed to have that captured already, and as a result, I think they could add extremer elements to their sound and it wouldn't sound out of place, even though they never fully commit to that on their sound. It's an immersive sounding album, and a lot of that comes from the production. The production is full. Like, you good set of headphones on, you sit back and listen. You were talking about it's like Get Out, where the guy's like falls into the black, and it's like that when you listen to it. It is, the album artwork is black and grey and white, and it has that feeling. It's like an atmosphere devoid of colour. Yet the music, because it's shoegazy, is peppered with colour when you listen to it. It's blues and it's purples, and you get all those kind of the sort of eccentricities of those particular sounds that capture those colour elements. But you look at it like to the layman looking at that, very much like when you sent it through to me in my failing memory. I looked at it and I was like, that, oh, we're doing death metal, great. Could not have been more wrong. But it has that kind of, it has that sense of kind of like walking into shade and feeling the light being drawn away from you. You just feel like you're being absorbed by something. I want to double down on what you've said on Church Road Records. I think they are one of the more interesting record labels on the planet right now, in that they're not huge, but you can track the lineage of a lot of huge bands right now, right back to Church Road,
Yep.
and they are cultivating the next crop of bands that are going to be the next big thing right fucking now. And I stress this a lot. That is an important element in the music industry, and something we lost for a while there. You mentioned Spine Farm Records earlier on. They're another example of that. There used to be a feeder system of labels that would get bands, bring them in, get them that album, get them those tours, and get them to a point where a bigger label would say, thanks, we'll take them on.
Yep.
And then they would feed them up. And Church Road Records have a lot of bands that have done that, but they also have a lot of bands that stick with them. And that's the testament to how good they are as a record label. Because if you're known as a feeder label system, a lot of bands are just using that as the stepping stone to the next thing. And the fact that they've retained so many bands and so many bands are happy to sign with them shows how on the pulse they are. It's a diverse record label, and this album sits as one of those kind of crown jewels amongst an exceptional year. I've not heard anything bad from Church Road Records this year, and it's been as diverse as ever. But Outlander are one of those bands that are on the bucket list to check out. Cannot wait. Need to see them live. But at the same time, they're a band that I just infinitely excited about the future for them. I think the world's our oyster, and I want to be there to take it all in. So yeah, at number 6 for me, in closing out the first half of this recording, Dave, it's Outlander, Acts of Harm on Church Road Records.
Excellent. So that is part 1. We'll just do a quick countdown of our 10 through to 6. Just for the lazy people who want to skip to the end of the video.
Right to the end. You fat bastards.
This is for you. So my number 10 was Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol and Big Dumb Riffs. Number 9 was Duel and The Shape of Fluidity. Number 8 was Cognitive and Abhorrence. Number 7 was Ishan and Ishan. Number 6 was Outlander and Acts of Harm. Ross.
My number 10 was Arc by Crossfaith. Number 9 was There Goes the Neighborhood by Kid Capiche. Number 8 was Year 2 by Dude Cicada. Number 7 was Duat by Shokran. And number 6 was You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To by Not Loose.
Nice. Duncan.
At number 9, At number 9, there is no 10. 10 was too difficult. At number 10, Gallo with Twin Flames. At number 9, Duel with The Shape of Fluidity. Number 8 is Big Brave with A Chaos of Flowers. Number 7 is No One a Single Say Fuck That. Fuck that. No, it's Null with As Spoken. And number 6 is Outlander with Acts of Harm.
Nice. So that is part 1 of our top 10 albums of 2024 so far. Join us on part 2 when we'll be counting down our number 5 to number 1.
Part 2, aka Shit's Got Reels.
Nice. We'll catch you soon on part 2.